Oh, yes, I've got it. Yes, okay, I'm happy.
Is everyone going to go on mute?
Yep, got it.
Can we make Linda bigger?
Okay.
Do I have to press this button?
You can make her bigger if you go to her little.
No, I've got a notice in the middle of the screen that says this meeting is being recorded.
Yes,
Yeah.
on my screen. Okay, good. Now, well, I was just going to say, can we stop recording for a second? Because this one's just for right. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is our wonderful permaculture craft group, and we're trying Zoom. So we're going to do it. I'm going to run a Sashiko workshop this morning. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I only did 1 day course at Hobby Sew about a year ago, which was absolutely superb when we could actually do things like that. I bought the book and I really enjoyed it. So I've just put in the chat, if anybody's watching it, the Ultimate Sashiko Source Book by Susan Briscoe. I know it's back to front, but it'll give you an idea of what it looks like. There's very few books that I've bought that I've been just so pleased with. You can have a look. We can make coasters. You can do absolutely endless amount of Sashiko. Basically, Sashiko is Japanese. It started many hundreds of years ago. Basically, it was for the poor, and it was used as a way to repair the clothing, and then it just continued on. In the 70s, it really became well, not a worldwide thing, but much more something that everybody got interested in, and it actually became more of an art as such. And initially, why it's indigo is that the peasants were not allowed to have any coloured fabrics. So all they could have were the blues, and only those who were wealthy or were further up. I'm just trying to see if you can see me better. That's a bit better. I'll turn that off. Okay. So basically the stitch itself is really lovely and simple. Basically, I don't know whether you can see the needle. You actually can purchase Sashiko needles, and it really is worth having them. They're a little bit sharper than some of the normal needles, and the actual eye is a little bit wider, and it makes it. And if you can, the Sashiko thread itself is actually very nice, and it's a little bit thicker than ordinary cottons, but there's no reason at all saying that why we can't just use I'll see if I've got one with any of these. I think they're Euchre. So yeah, any sort of ones, any sort of colors like this are quite adequate. And I've actually even been using embroidery cotton. I actually got a ridiculous number of these packets for about 50 cents each. And with these, if I just want a nice color, I'll use the whole 6 strands, but I will twist them as I'm sewing.
I can't hear.
Pauline, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear Linda.
Yeah. Can you go to participants and unmute her?
Hang on. Is it working? I still can't hear her.
Send her a message.
Maybe she can unmute herself.
Just stop the video for a minute.
It's funny because I can hear the rest of you, but not Linda.
But
Yeah,
she's
there you
just
go.
Can you hear me
unmuted
now?
herself.
There you go.
I think you muted me.
Is it working now? I
Yeah.
can hear you now. Can everyone else?
Can everyone hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, where do you want to start from? What didn't you get? That I don't know how that happened. It
The
just-
sewing
Something about the
technique.
needle. I lost it.
okay, let's go back to the beginning. So basically the needles are Sashikos, Sashiko needles. You don't need them, but you could just use an ordinary embroidery needle with a larger eye. But the purpose of the Sashiko is that they've got a really lovely sharp point. So it's actually worth, if you can, just to buy a packet of them. But they're normally sold individually. So like everything in life, they're a little bit expensive, but if you don't lose it, it's very good. So then you just have your, do we want to go through the Sashiko cottons again? Or that's an actual Sashiko cotton, and it's twisted and it's just a little bit thicker, not a lot, a little bit thicker than the ordinary cottons. So the idea is I've got a length about that, oh, you know, arm's width, not too much, about a foot and a half. Tie one end in a knot. And then if you have I've started a little bit of this one. Okay, so the idea is that you can start wherever you like. Okay, I might have to change glasses. The joys of eyes. Okay, so let's get okay, so obviously here you just start from one edge. The idea is when we do it on the bags, I'm not nearly as neat as this, but this one is pre-printed. And it's actually better if you have because we're going to be using a bag, it's not bad to actually not have your knot absolutely tight. So that if you happen to pull it, want to be able to pull it a little more, just you know, maybe a little quarter of an inch loose before you get to the knot. So you've got the knot on the outside, you've gone in, leaving about a quarter of an inch. And the idea is, if you can, some people might find this one a little bit hard because they really are. I think for me, I'm going to go double. That's too small for me to be comfortable with. So I'm going to do 2 of those white spaces, white dots. And then the idea is, if you can, is to do a few, as this is straight, just do a few on your needle. Right. That's probably enough. And this is only as a guide. So, okay, put a few on your needle, just hold one end, and as per usual, just pull the needle through. There we go. And that's not as even as I normally do, but that's what we're doing. So it's really very simple. So it's almost like a small tacking stitch, and do it as even as you can. How are we going with that? All good?
I was just trying to thread the needle.
That's fair enough. You might need a better point or a bit of water. Yeah. I cheat, and I've got needles that you can you know, actually have a hole in them at the top, but it's no good for Sashiko because they're too fine. Okay, so we're going like that again, and then we're just pulling the needle through. It'll be actually a lot easier on the bag. And I would do this normally. I'll probably undo this, and I'd probably do this a little bit neater.
Excuse me, Linda.
Yes,
So it does help to draw a line first, I take it.
you don't have to. I'll show you my bag. This is the one I've enjoyed immensely. This is the last one that I showed you last week before I started it. All I've done is I've done the tacking. I haven't drawn any lines at all. I've just taken the shapes from the fabric, like this circle, and I've sort of thought, oh, I wouldn't mind having a circle. Now, it doesn't matter if it's not absolutely perfect.
Okay.
And
And if you were to draw lines, what would you use? Just like a chalk or something?
absolutely. Look, the lines are good, depending upon the colour. I just find the white markers are excellent, white quilting marker.
Okay.
And what I do, if you haven't seen them, are actually coloured pencil sharpeners.
Oh,
They are absolutely amazing because otherwise the coloured pencil keeps breaking.
right.
So they're well worth having. But yes, look, just use a marker. And you can also do incredibly simple patterns. Like if you think, oh, this is a bit too much, just go straight lines all the way across. Yeah.
Is
And
it,
if you-
is the quilting pencil like a chalk?
Yes, very much so. But it probably stays on a little longer.
Okay. And you get it from Spotlight?
Yeah, this is what it is. This one is a water-soluble pencil from Clover, Japan.
Oh, okay.
But I did get it from Hobby Sew.
And one more
Quilting.
question, with the types of threads that are used,
Yeah.
do you tend to go for a lighter color? Like traditionally, is it, you know, whites, or just a color that's going to complement in a lighter color the fabrics that you've used?
Yeah, I would say whatever colour you feel you like. It's very much your own choice. But yes, traditionally, that's
colour.
absolutely the colour you would go for, indigo and white. Yeah, but you don't have to. See, like I've done, I'll get my bag. With this one, I did, because I quite like the the orangey background, I use blue thread.
Yep.
So this is really something that we just do your own. And again, I'll show you, I've got some little it's a pity we can't do it together, but I use these as little templates for your circles. And that's if you want them more uniform, but we don't have to. I think that the joy of it is to do exactly what you want. And they're all going to be so individual. So are we happy about the sewing? So basically, we'll next stage is we'll actually cut it out and set it out.
So the coloured pencil sharpener,
Yes.
is that different from a normal sharpener?
Totally.
Where from?
I just got it from Hobby Sew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's called I need some glasses. It's a Colour Express. It looks like Easy Steel or Zeal, something like that. It's so old, this one. Look, you don't have to have them, but by crikey, they make it easier. Now, I haven't looked online, so I don't know whether they're available.
Excuse me, Linda. Is it okay to use the Frixon pens? These ones, have you seen those? You can buy these at the supermarket. They're made by Pilot. I
Right.
use them when I'm doing sewing because you can draw on the fabric, and when you wash it, the pen comes out.
Or iron it.
I think that's fine.
Yes, or if you iron it, it comes out as
Yeah.
well.
I think that's,
And-
that should be fine, particularly if you can iron it out. I think, I
Yeah.
know Bev last time said, can you wash the bags? Yes, you can, but they are a bit fragile, even with all the sewing.
And this may be easier for people to get during lockdown because you can actually buy
Absolutely.
these at the supermarket.
Much easier.
Okay, thank you.
And look, if it does something to the fabric, we're not going to be here by the time it's who knows, you know. Let's
Mhm.
just enjoy it. Okay. All right. So are we happy with the stitching? We've sort of, so it's really is your own feel, but it's absolutely vital when we do that. We'll do the first step now, and then it's really vital to do the basting. So I'll just put, I won't put my iron on yet. So, if we've all got our backing, and the idea of this again is just to, it's self-expression. It doesn't matter what you cut, what fabrics you use, how you put them together. I do think it's good if you can overlap your fabrics by about 1/4 inch. That just means you've got a good edge to actually hold it down with the Sashiko stitching. So does everybody understand what I'm saying? Yep. I'll just see if we can get down onto this. So say this one, as you can see, is ready to go. That's all ready to be done. So that's all sorted. And I'll actually, I've got another one here, so I'll do another one from scratch. But so what we're looking at is, this is the completed work. If we could just even get to something like this stage today, that'd be great, or at least give you an idea. And then I think in a couple of weeks, or whenever we're a bit further ready, we'll get on to the next stage. Once it's all been sewn, we'll put it together.
Well, we need next week because to give us some motivation to do it.
Precisely. Well, let's say if we could have one side done by next week. If you got the two, well, that's great.
Excuse me, Linda.
Yes.
This is just a sewing type question. You mentioned that the size of the bag, you found the best sort of size around 14 inches by 14 inches.
Yes.
Does that allow for seam allowance, or should I go 15 by 15 to allow for seam allowance?
It's totally up to you. Yes. Has everybody had a look at the Missouri quilters?
Yes.
Yeah. Now I'll get this one. So we're incredibly flexible. I have actually gone 15 inches. I think I've gone about 15 inches by 15 inches for this one, because I sort of thought I wanted a bit more to play with, and we can always cut it down.
Mm.
Yeah. And so why I did the 14 inch by 14 inch is that it fits the Missouri quilters pattern. So with their one where they use all the patches, I just measured up what the front and back fabric was.
That's not really Sashiki, is it?
No. But there's no reason. I think the Sashiko really has ended up being more the stitch, but no, it's not really. It's more like just, but there's no reason why you can't do very simple squares and still just do Sashiko. Like, you don't even have to have any colored fabrics. Like, you can just do 2 colors, you know, maybe just white and indigo.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, so that if we want to do that, maybe after we've done this, we can follow. This has, I think it's 24 4-inch squares. And if we follow off the video, it is the simplest bag I've ever done, and it is so quick. Okay, so yeah, so that was the question. So really the question is, If you want a wider bag or a smaller bag or a cushion, the size is really totally up to you, because you're putting whatever fabrics you want.
But that 14 by 14, if we were to go directly with that, does that include the seam allowance or not?
Yes, yes, yes,
does.
yes. That is, because the idea is that, like this, you want the Sashiko finishes at the end of the backing. So
Right.
yes, the seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch in from that. So you want to make sure your fabrics, it doesn't matter if they go over the edge, because we can always straighten them up. And if you haven't got the backing, or and you would like to have a bigger bag, then just use a bigger piece of backing. Yeah, that was just a good size for the bag, but look, totally up to you. But yes, this includes the seam allowance, so you don't have to add any more. Great. Okay, so where we're at now is this. Yeah, you can see this one. So that one's virtually finished. What we'll do is I'll put the iron on. Oh, let's actually, before we iron it, let's start making one. Then we'll do the ironing. Okay, so the secret is if you have the backing that I supplied, it is old, but it's still worked. So you want the pimply side upwards. And then it's good if you can lay it flat. And I actually, I haven't got with me, but I actually used a basting. Here we go. Right. Now, this is where the fun begins. Are we ready? So you need a whole lot of scraps next to you. Just say when you're ready to go. Everybody ready? Pauline? Can't hear you.
Yep, I'm ready.
Oh, good. Okay. Oops. Now, this is literally where the fun begins. You don't have to cut it straight. Well, I mean, you cut it straight, but hey, it doesn't have to be to the millimeter. Don't even have to have it square or oblong, but I'm just working with square. But you play around with it. So that's a piece I've just cut. No more work than that. And I think I'll probably put it in the corner. So you just put it there. You say, okay, I like that. I'll have another piece. So I'm just going to have another smaller one. So we just put another one on top. They can be any size. It's probably better to go a little bit larger than this. Right. So what I think we'll do is I'll just put on about half a dozen bits, and then we can go to so that sort of idea. The main thing is you're going to put 1/4 of an inch over that fabric, over or under, whatever you like, as long as there's 1/4 of an inch. Okay, now I'd probably spend a little bit more time with this, but let's have a look. So I've got a couple of squares, so I'm just going to go quite like that. One there, and over there. That one can go underneath. Okay, I quite like that on top. Let's just put another one. Quite like that. I quite like a little bit of the reds. So that one's there, again on top. I quite like a bit of balancing red over there. So I'll have one there. Right, so if everybody wants to start cutting, you're very welcome to. That one I think might have up there. Okay. Right. Is that time going? Oh, 11 o'clock. Okay. Okay. Just like that one off.
Can you mix different, like denim with other things? It doesn't matter.
Yes, I don't think it matters at all. I don't think it matters at all. These are all quite, some of them are quite fine, because these ones, a lot of them are from kimonos. So they've actually been worn.
Is there a way you can buy a bag full of kimono bits?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying, Hazel. I think you missed it earlier. Like that was I was saying earlier. The answer is yes. Be careful. I was a bit disappointed. I just paid $25 for a bag.
Oh.
And I got about 4 pieces of fabric, less about that big. And that was it. And that was it.
That's sad.
Yeah, well, you know, you don't know what you're going to get. It's not like buying a meter. Oops, I'll put my face up. Yeah, it's not like buying a meter or something. It really depends how generous the person is, what it's going to look like. Yeah.
Okay.
Look, you can do this in front of the TV. You don't have to. And I've been sewing each night. I'm really doing. I do my nightly meditation with a group at 9 o'clock. Of course, I'm now starting it, so that's all right. I've become the organizer. Then after that, I come in and do some sashiko. And I just find it a very relaxing way to enjoy it.
I was just pulling out bits of an old skirt I had.
Good.
And it's they're surprising good when you look at them differently.
Yes, and you can turn them upside down too. A piece of fabric can look lovely from the wrong side.
Oh.
If you want the same colors but not the same pattern, you just turn the fabric over upside down. I love this because all perfectionist tendencies are just go.
Windy outside.
I think it's a lovely idea because it allows you to
Windy outside.
bring together like old clothes, things that you've really worn out, to take a bit of that and actually keep part of your wardrobe with you and turn it into a work of art. That's a big appeal for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just gives you pleasure. And you also know that, I mean, like I know with all of us with our craft, you know there's not going to be another one on the planet.
Yeah.
And if you've, like I've done this one, I haven't cut it very straight. Well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'll put it underneath the one that is cut straight.
I love the crooked ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to be straight. Yes. I'm trying to be a recovering perfectionist. I'm working
That's
awfully
lovely.
hard on it. And
Recovering perfectionist.
And absolutely, Hazel, it does not have to be straight. It's a totally utter
It's so
truth.
like nature. It's not straight.
Exactly. Well, this is going to be a bit wonky.
Oh, this is lovely, Linda.
Good.
Can I just ask, Linda?
Good.
I've got this fabric that's obviously been stitched together. Like there's a seam there.
Yeah.
Could I use a section of that's already seamed to cut like
Absolutely no reason not to.
I've
No reason not to.
because
Yeah,
I've used
makes
an
it-
old pair of an old pair of jeans. I've actually left the
Yeah.
pocket section in it
Oh, brilliant.
in the bag.
I love it.
Me too.
Excellent. Now, I'm just looking for some. But I have so many bags of just ordinary quilt scraps in the garage. I actually did a wonderful declutter on the weekend.
Oh, enough. Enough.
And if you get tired of having little ones, do a couple of big bits.
You must have read my mind, Linda.
Well, I know I do. I've got one long piece in the one I'm going to do next with everyone, and I really rather like it because I was getting a little tired of putting all my pieces together. Actually, I might do it with this one. I was very fortunate in that I got a lot of these fabrics from Hobby Sew when we could, but I haven't got a lot left. But that's okay.
Were they Sashiko fabrics?
No, possibly yes, actually. I think yes, Hazel. I bought them after I did the workshop, and they certainly had. Oh, it was a big section. There would have been 20 or 30 pieces of fabric, and I was just able to get 0.2, as they say, from each one. And
Oh,
that,
lovely.
yeah, so that gave me. So look, I would think about. I'm just a bit suspect of buying the pieces online. I think if you find a fabric you like, buy a quarter metre if they will let you. I think there's going to be so much more online stuff available if everything continues as it is. But as I said, there are. Well, not everybody's honest.
I like the way we're working together today. It's lovely. Thank you, everybody.
Mm. Another question, Linda.
Yes.
So we're aiming for coverage with, as you say, like minimal overlap, but there really only needs to be one layer of material on the interfacing. You don't need to have two at any time, because in some areas I've actually got 3 because I've just been layering stuff on
3 might be a bit much to sew through.
Okay.
It's better if you've just got 1/4 of an inch. It gets thick really quickly.
Right.
But if you got 3 crossing in a corner, you'll have 3.
I'm just going to try my needle on it. Yeah, because it's quite thin and a lot of it's very old material. I think I'm going to leave this for this one, and then I'll try doing it exactly your way with the next.
Look,
one.
it's totally up what you're comfortable with, and it could work out totally fine.
But there will be spots. There's 3.
Yes, there will be. Yes. And when we get further on, we've got some options I only used the lining. Now that's the next thing is once we're a bit organised, we'll need to think about if you've got enough fabric for lining and handles. We might have to buy some. I don't know how much fabric everyone's got, but you want a lining sort of. I've gone indigo just because it's simple, but any colour is fine. We're gonna. I think it's about. On the Missouri quilters, she gives you the details in yards, but I don't know whether it's for 3 bags or the 1. So basically, I'll do this. I'll just do a quick measure of what the.
Linda, do you want me to listen to the video and I can get back to you on how big the strap pieces are?
Yeah. I think the strap pieces are 4 inches wide.
Yep.
And the length is totally what you're happy with.
Right. So you've said 34 or 32, I think.
Yeah.
34
Yes.
sewn.
That's so with the strapping,
Yep.
4 inches wide, and you want a length of. I mean, there's no reason why we can't again have that joined. I mean, we can have a strap of colours. It would be a bit more work, but you could certainly do that. But yeah, they're 4 inches wide, and then they're just folded in, and they have a very soft batting actually in. So yeah, and again, I like it so that I can actually get to the bottom of the bag. So it totally depends what your height is as to how long you want the straps. And you don't have to have the straps the same as the lining, but I just like the indigo line. It made it a lot simpler. So you weren't trying to, it just, the indigo fitted in with the others, but you could have gone red, largely whatever colour you have. Okay, let's see where my big piece is. It's gone to the floor somewhere. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'll just continue. Now, do we want to continue on? I've almost finished my one, or I'm quite happy to start on the one I've already done as far as ironing it and finishing it. What's the general consensus? Finish or come back?
Have you finished? You ready to iron it?
Yeah, I've got one all completed that I can iron now if we choose to.
I think we should iron it because then people could go on at their own pace then.
That's what I think. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to move it over here to iron it. Pop the iron on. And also you might like, what I've done a few times is I've just sat it out on the table and walked past it. And I thought, oh, I don't like that. I want to change it around. So yeah, you can do that before you iron it. But I've lost a few pieces, so I'll just rectify where my pieces are gone. I'll just do a little bit of mending here. It's a bit of a pain moving it over, but I actually basted on the ironing board, and that for me worked really very well. Oops. Okay, I'll just get this right a little bit better. Okay, nearly there. Right, okay. Let's just get this here. Now, I just missed one little piece. There.
Does Hobby Sew sell the needles?
Yes, they did.
With
Now
the tiny heads or the big heads?
The big head. So you actually, if you do, you might even buy them somewhere else. They are called Sashiko Needles.
Because the one video said you needed a big long head but a tiny hole or something, no bigger than the shape of the needle.
Yeah, they are a bit like that, the Sashiko Needles, but it doesn't look, you know, if you can get one, that's great, and if not, then that's acceptable too. I was just looking at the needle. It's a little bit thicker than a normal embroidery needle. It's certainly not like a quilt needle, and it's got quite a sharp point, and I don't know whether you can see the end. The hole would be about, I would say, very close to almost 1/4 inch. So it's quite a long. Yeah, the hole is about 1/4 inch long. So it's quite a good size. Okay, now I'll see if we can move my camera. Right. Okay. Now come back down to the board. Okay. Now, for ironing it, I'll put this here. Okay, for ironing it, has anybody ever used these? These are an amazing product. I've had these for years. They're plastic, and they're suited for this absolute idea is so you actually put it down and you actually iron onto it, and it can get really hot and it doesn't damage the fabric. So if you haven't got that, you just get a piece of cloth, just as if you were pressing it. So look, I'll do this one. So it's not going to be absolutely, because the material, because it's a bit old, and so I do it the hottest I can, and I just hold it on a few seconds, just see if it's going to heat. As I said, it's a bit old, the glue. That should work. Right, let's do this one, see if that'll sit there. Let's do that one. Okay, so the main thing is to leave the iron on quite the hottest you can, and also don't have it on steam. Just have it on dry.
Oh, why?
It just works so much better. I don't know whether it's it really is. If you do it on steam, it's not nearly as good. I don't know whether
when you use steam, it can make your fabric expand or contract.
Exactly.
That's why you don't use steam in quilting as well.
Yeah, that's
I
It's a
didn't
dry
know.
on.
yeah, that's exactly right, Pauline. So you're much better to just do it dry.
Well,
And-
never knew.
Yep, it's just a little technique. And even when you're ironing your seams and everything in normal patchwork quilting, always have it dry.
Never have. I will now.
It just makes a difference. No, I was incredibly fortunate. People probably don't know where my patchwork history. Oops, talking to nobody. It's a very quick, brief thing. I was incredibly fortunate. Brian wanted to get up the TAFE, go up the TAFE ladder, and he did very well when he finished up eventually. He was a head teacher. I think he was in charge of about 18 teachers, all through from Moree up to Bungandai. So we just bought this beautiful home in Pymble. I just put my curtains up and he got his transfer. So we rented the house out, went up to Moree, which was fascinating, put it mildly. I knew nobody, and it was my awakening of my life. because I'd always, all my whole life, I'd worked with men. I had never had virtually no women as acquaintances. I'd always worked with a couple of blokes, or more than blokes, maybe had a couple of women, but always men. And this was the first time in my life I became a woman. And I actually learnt what a skirt was.
Wow.
And I was just embraced by the community. Absolutely. I mean, I even got to know the actual Moree residents, which is pretty unheard of. But that's a very quick story. How I ended up with that was I was actually very religious at that stage, and I used to regularly go to church. So the first time I went to church in Moree, I sat in somebody else's seat. And that was an absolute no-no. Now, how am I supposed to know who sat in that seat? So anyway, we then became the firmest of friends. And she was actually, her father was actually the first mayor of Moree. So I learned a huge amount about Moree. And then Brian thought, oh, I've just had this wife, working 20 years constantly, bit of a workaholic. He put me in 5 TAFE courses, and one of them was patchwork quilting. And I had this amazing woman, Yvonne Overton. She's actually had several of her quilts in the quilt show when we had a quilt show. And I did a full year of patchwork, and it was the best course I've ever done in my life. And it just set me up for... Then we went to Armidale, and I knew all about patchwork quilting, so I was just in the next group, and then, yeah, continued on. So that's where my knowledge has come from. Now, so we're all set. I'll pick this up ever so gently. I'll pop the camera back. So basically, this is relatively attached. Okay. I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't, you could, but I wouldn't try now to sit and sew that. I think there's every chance that it'll all come apart, but it's attached enough. As I said, I can hold it up like that. That's not bad. So this is a bit tedious. It's absolutely worth it. You've just got a normal cotton thread, and I'm actually using the Sashiko needle because it's easier to thread. And again, not in one end. And all we're going to do is tack it, which is actually called basting. If you want.
How big are your stitches?
As big as you like, Hazel, about 1/4 inch, maybe 1/2 inch. This one's actually, we can see this one. I found that, I'd say that about 1/4 inch. There, that's the size I've got. And obviously you take the stitching out when you're finished. So yeah, they're not tiny.
And how far apart is that?
I've got mine again about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch apart.
Ooh, that's a lot. I mean,
It is a lot.
it looks like it's about 1 inch apart.
They're a bit less. I'd say we're about 1/2 inch apart. 1 inch apart, I think, would be too wide. Look, it might take you about an hour or so, maybe an hour and a bit, but you don't have to tack it all. Okay.
Looks nice like that.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there's no reason why you can't just Sashiko like that, just straight lines with Sashiko cotton. But I would still you might get away without basting it, but I don't know. I think the fabric would keep falling off.
Have you got your good Sashiko stitching and the basting on there?
Yes. So the good Sashiko stitching in this one is, say, around that one. And then I've still got the tacking, which I will remove when it's all finished.
But you have to, do you quilt this after you've done it?
Yeah, no, this is what we could theoretically no, but if you want to, we certainly can.
So how do you, where you've only got that 1/4 inch seam and only tacking on it,
Yeah.
you'll have to do some kind of Sashiko stitch over that to stop it falling off.
Yeah. The Sashiko is this one. This is all Sashiko. So can you understand that? So you've got your tacking stitches underneath, holding
But-
the,
Below that, lower
Yeah.
down the screen,
yeah,
where the blue touches the red bit, are
Yeah.
you going to have to Sashiko all the way along there?
absolutely. And that's the fun of it. But if you don't want to do all the circles, you could just Sashiko, but I would at least do 1/4 inch. I wouldn't do any narrow, any wider than 1/4 inch. And you would have to make sure that your stitching went on the cut edge. So that you don't want to have it. Yeah, where have I got
So
done?
you do have to go around every bit of fabric that you connect to the other bit.
Absolutely, yes. But if you don't want to do it individually, just sew across with your Sashiko cotton.
Right.
I don't know if you want to have a look at Viv's bag,
Yeah,
because what she actually did for her tacking was she did it on a sewing machine.
yes,
So she stitched for her tacking, rows of sewing machine basting across it at 1 inch intervals, which she then left in. She didn't pull it out. So she didn't take her tacking stitches out. And then she has done her Sashiko stitching as well over the top of that, just in straight rows over all the fabrics. But her
That's
tacking
beautiful.
stitching is still in there. You
Well,
can
that's
hardly
quicker.
it's much quicker. So if somebody doesn't want to tack by hand, you could do that. Sew
absolutely.
across it with a sewing machine and then still do your decorative stitching over that. And it does look really nice what she's done.
Absolutely.
And
I'll
she
just
has
take out the
done her
machine stitching
Sachiko
that.
stitching. She's just done from one side of the bag
Yep.
all the way across in a straight line.
That looks fine. And if you did a very neutral colour, I'm coming close to it, you can't even see it.
Yeah, you can't really see her tacking stitches
Yeah.
until you look really close. And she's actually used multicolored threads for her Sachiko.
Oh, yeah.
She's
you
got
don't-
blue, yellow, orange.
Yep.
She's got all different coloured threads, which actually looks quite good.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of packs of multicoloured threads of Sashiko. They're not very expensive. I mean, like everything's a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it's just whatever you like, really. It's quite expressive and quite personal.
Oh, completely, Pauline. And as much work as you want to put in it or not want to put into it.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's the
agree.
beauty of it.
I think that's a brilliant idea of doing the tacking on the machine.
That one online that you with the squares, they also tack with the machine, don't they?
Don't think so.
No, because their squares were
Yeah.
actually sewn together with the machine.
Yes. Yeah, everything was machine.
So it was a little bit different. It was more like making a quilt,
Yeah.
but then doing the Sashiko stitching on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Question,
Yes.
if you do the basting just to hold the whole thing together and to get like a grid almost on the machine, and then you did the
Yeah.
Sashiko patterning, however you wanted to do it, you could then remove
Yeah.
the sewing tacking, couldn't you? You could just remove it.
Absolutely.
You could, yes.
And you
But
could-
Viv did a very small stitch on the machine, which would be hard to remove, but that was what she did at her class.
Mm.
And they actually left the stitching in. And to tell you the truth, you can hardly notice it. Until she told me, I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But you could do a basting stitch on your sewing machine and then pull it out as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I haven't tried that, but I think it'd work fine. My only concern with that at all is that the interfacing that I've given you is a bit old, and I don't think the glue is probably as good as. So you have to be very careful if you're doing it on the machine.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That
And
would-
also I feel like the machine takes away from that gentle
Yeah, it
hand
does.
sewing meditation almost. of
It does.
sewing.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, I enjoyed the tacking, and I actually found it was simpler. I just left the patch like this, actually on the ironing board in my room. And when I came back and wanted a couple of rows of stitching, I did.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great idea.
So, Linda, I was out ironing. Sorry, when you started talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the tacking, did you say that you do rows of tacking that you take out or that you leave in?
Definitely take them out.
And what do you use? Just regular thread?
Just
or-
regular thread, nothing expensive, very, very basic, very cheap cotton. Or it
Okay.
doesn't have to be cotton. Mine's actually polyester.
Okay.
But it's better to have a colour that's pretty obvious. So
Yes.
like I've almost got a white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And if you want to, if you think, oh, you know, where the basting is, just do the Sashiko stitch under the basting. You know, if it's in the wrong spot, like.
Do you eventually put quilting padding?
Yes, I think that's just, I'll just change my glasses. Now found a roll, yes. Oh, that's what I'm sitting on. I actually found it in my cleanup. I've got a bag somewhere of much thinner batting than this. But yes, what I did, if we wanted to, I actually made my fellow. I made this one without any padding, because by the time I put all the fabric on, it was quite solid. So all this one is the outside fabric and the lining. But if you want a thicker bag, there's no reason why we can't, when we finish the Sashiko, just use this. Now again, what I did with this, I think actually I might have padded this one. Feels like I might have done a very light padding. You can just attach the padding with a few more Sashiko stitches if you choose to. So that you've got the Sashiko on the front, your backing, if you want it a bit thicker. And then this was easy because you just machined it down, but you could add a few more tacking stitches of Sashiko just to hold it together. So we've got a few options when we get to making it. And you could put pockets in it, you can put zippers, you can do as intricate or as simple as you like. Okay. So have we got enough to go on with?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, this tacking is going to take a little while.
Yes, it will. Very therapeutic, unless you want to do it on the machine, and I won't know.
It's a great project to do on Zoom because we can just sit here and chat and do our tacking or our stitching.
And it doesn't matter if it takes us a month to get to where we want to put it together.
And no, I feel like we're going to have plenty of time. So
well, I'm amazed how many backings. I think I'm a bit embarrassed how many I've already made. They just keep coming.
What do you
how many
do with them then?
bags do we need?
Have you got someone to give them to, Linda?
Yeah, I've got a couple of special friends I'm making them for. I hope they've got some idea of the amount of work it takes. But other than that, no, I'm just making them.
I think it would make very nice placemats for your table.
Oh, gorgeous. And lovely coasters and
yes,
lovely
and table runner
and cushions. And I mean, if you choose to,
Right.
they are very viable on eBay to sell.
Oh, not after doing all this work. I'm not
No,
selling.
well, this is a problem. People still only pay about $50 or $60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when you're actually doing your Sashiko stitching, what you were saying was when you do your stitches, you have to make sure a stitch goes over the edge of your fabric.
Yes, you absolutely want to be right to the edge. And there's no reason at all why you couldn't machine the edge yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe even like we've got these ones, we're going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, there's no reason at all why you couldn't put your, actually, that'd probably be a good idea. Yeah, overlock it if you wanted to. That'd be brilliant. Yeah.
I was actually meaning on the little patches themselves.
Yep.
So, you know, where your 2 patches join.
Yeah, you are.
Would you have to make that sure that a stitch actually goes over the top of that join so your fabric didn't lift up on the join?
Well, yes and no. What I've done with this one is, if you can see it, is I've actually got a little, I've done, the Sashiko has actually gone in the circle.
Right, so
Now,
it's not going along
it's
the
not
edge of the-
absolutely, but if you can, yes, it's like this one, if you can, it is better to go to the edge.
Okay, that makes sense.
Totally up to you again as to how much you want to look at natural, or, you know,
Yes.
if you're happy with a bit of fraying. Or
I was just worried that the edge might lift up if I didn't stitch over it.
I think it's not a bad, I think it's a good option. Yes.
Okay.
I think it is a good option to actually stitch the edge over. Yep. It's all right. Now I've got distracted. It's a bit like jigsaw. You sort of think, oh, I'll put that colour in there. Oh dear. I was just checking the times going by again. So I think, are we happy to call it an end for that, for our first session, and then just do whatever, just keep sewing or whatever we want to do?
Well, if you like, I'll stop the recording now
I think that's a great idea, Pauline.
and we can just have a general